Welcome in, ChattTenn Sports. I have a beautiful, absolutely very professional co-host today, Greg Larnerd of ESPN Chattanooga and the Better Network. How are you today, my friend?
I would use the term professional very loosely at this
Mm,
juncture of the evening, as we're rocking and rolling, running around from one thing to another. Got a workout in today though, so we got our protein shake. I'm doing something a little crazy today. Now, generally we just go milk and we just get a good scoop of protein in there, but I'm like almond milk, straight vanilla protein. I'm like that's a little bland. I need a little something extra in there, and I was looking around the kitchen trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I've got like that natural peanut butter that has like all the oils in it and stuff. So it's a little looser. And I was like, maybe I'll just drizzle a little bit in there. So we're going with a little bit of a different combination, and it's working out quite nicely. So I'm ready to light the fires and let's go.
let's freaking go, baby. Hannah has become a huge fan of the PB Fit. I mean, it is rampant around our household. So we got a lot to do today. So I'm glad you got your protein in. Glad you get your little swole session. It's gonna be great.
Saw some
So
baseball. It's a full day.
it's a
Full
big
day.
full day for you, my friend. You went from
I couldn't-
coaching.
I couldn't end the day on a better note though. And
Oh.
I'm so happy that you're home. Can't wait to see you on Friday. Oh, it's gonna be fantastic.
I know we're right here in this beautiful city of Chattanooga. Thanks to shout out to my good man that lets me stay at his home right now. But things we're gonna do today besides just be best friends. We're gonna talk some UConn basketball as a Husky man himself. Literally and figuratively from his younger years, like myself. We got some basketball. We've got some more women's basketball because that was a fun debate for the entire country, it felt like. And definitely we got to talk about what we're going to do after March Madness and the Masters, because the casual fan right now is going to be in a little bit of disarray. Like if you're not much of an NBA or MLB guy, so it could be fun. Could be a little weird for some people. So Or girl. Yeah, definitely the girls, because the ladies right now are hot right now. So, but we're going to hit a little intro, do all the fun stuff, all the podcast things we have to do. Like, subscribe, share during the live show. Fire away in the comments. We got you guys. So enjoy this little intro.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of ChattTenn Sports, where we're talking all things Tennessee sports and everything in between. If you're watching us from Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, we do invite you to chat with us live, so make sure and keep that thing live. And if you're listening to us, be sure to follow, subscribe, rate the show, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit the bell for notifications. But folks, with that said, without further ado, let's jump into a brand new episode of ChattTenn Sports.
Love that little thing. Trey Wynn, great job on that.
Trey.
Buddy. I know. He's just good
Killing
at that
it.
stuff. He's so good at that stuff.
Yeah,
But
he is.
I
He's got a
wanted to-
wonderful voice.
He does have a good voice, and he has been picking and singing everywhere too. So can't knock the guy for doing the hustle right now. Churches, venues, wherever else, all the breweries around town. I have to know, because he's also an excited man. How are you feeling after your national championship?
Just basking in the glory, man. It's just it's fantastic. Strive for 5, drive for 5, whatever it may be. It's honestly the most consistent sports team that I root for. And it's interesting because it's the one that's most, I don't want to say it's the most near and dear to my heart, because it's not a professional team and I feel like I'm more of a Packers, Knicks, Mets fan, but it's my one true home state team. I could be a Knicks fan, I can be a Mets fan, but I didn't grow up in New York. I grew up New York adjacent. I grew up near New York. I grew up in earshot of WFAN. My dad was a Mets fan, Knicks fan, so that's how I became those. But this is the one true Connecticut thing, since we don't have other than the Connecticut Sun, and I'm not, the biggest. We're going to talk a lot about the ladies tonight, and as we well should, but I'm not the biggest WNBA fan. I don't get into it all that much. They do have the Connecticut Sun. They used to have the Hartford Whalers. They took that from us. And so we have Connecticut sports. We have the UConn Huskies, whether that's softball, baseball, basketball, as piss poor as they are in football, you can root for them. I was cleaning up the apartment, Sam and I were going through it a little bit last night, and I was trying to consolidate down some of these bins that we have, and I pulled out this bin that I had a bunch of like football jerseys in, and I have a white and blue, navy blue UConn Huskies football jersey for some gosh forsaken reason. So, I mean, that's what we have to root for. And the Huskies are the team that's been most successful in my lifetime. I mean, 5 championships in 24 years. The Packers have won 2 since I've been alive. The Knicks and the Mets, God help them, have never won one.
No.
But we're still keeping our fingers crossed for those. But yeah, no, I'm very excited, man. This was a fun and a very complete team.
Yes. That's definitely the biggest part of it is towards the end, like they were by far the best team. Like I really do feel like we got the best, most balanced team that won the championship this year. Was it a little wild? Yeah. I mean, but you kind of like look at it from a seeding perspective. You're like, well, these weren't that great of teams. But you look at it from a winning standpoint, from all the talent they had on the floor. For college players, this was not a loaded Final Four. There was no McDonald's All-Americans, probably not any first rounders. I don't think. There might be some guys that come out of it. Maybe Hawkins.
I was going to say maybe Jordan Hawkins.
That's somebody that made a little run for himself, even through his sickness. The stomach bug couldn't have been fun. But FAU is a 30-win team, though. You know, like that's a 9 seed. They would have got in anyways, even if they didn't win their tournament.
You don't think so? You think they would have?
Yeah, I really do. I think they would have. It'd have been really close. But this was the most dominant performance since that like 2009 UNC team that was dominating. But you guys won every game by 13 or more.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, like, there was that team that's happened, 5 times now in NCAA tournament history that a team has won by 10 plus points in every single one of their games that they played in the tournament. UNC in 2009 was one of those teams, but Villanova did it in 2018. So that was a team that recently went on that type of run and dominated the way that they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what's crazy too, is they're talking about, speaking of Villanova, it was the 16 team, but that came through and hit that shot in Houston also. So the last, like in the San Diego State game, the first one, the buzzer beater, and then the last shot that was made in that arena, basketball-wise, was freaking Chris Jenkins hitting that shot. The most heartbreaking, soul-crushing shot of all time for me. But, yeah, so those 2 buzzer beaters, so Houston, good for them. I looked at it from a perspective, too. It's like, yeah, y'all had your little blip in January, but you were like the best team in November, most of December, and then definitely going in February and March. And so I had Miami and I had UConn in the Final Four because they fit the models, you know, like good guard play, defense, and Miami did not, but they good guard play. And you guys y'all were big everywhere. Could play any style of basketball. I was like, dude, how are you guys going to who's going to beat this team? Especially if, you know, nobody comes out of there that's going to challenge them. And it was a little bit that way because you didn't get the top seeds. But dang, dude, that was a bad team. And you boy Sanogo, going to be a legend forever, right?
Oh, man, I'm a big fan of his. Like, I don't know if you listened to the show at all this week when I was talking about him, but it was so much fun to watch him. And as a former big man myself, when I was donning the hardwood and was on the basketball court as the 6'2" white kid that I am, you know, was very skinny. I don't know if y'all saw that picture on Twitter that I posted.
Was that camper of the week? What was that?
That was championship. Our team won the Jim Calhoun for our age group or whatever it was. We won the championship, league championship. No big deal. Yeah. So I really appreciated his physicality down low and just the fact that you can have him play probably 70% of the game. And then you have a freshman who's 7'2". You can't teach 7'2" coming in there. And Donovan Clingan, who's just long, tall, big boy. Nobody could score at the rim. Like they say guard play wins in March. Good guard play wins in March. But honestly, if your guards can't get to the rim and can't finish around these guys, what good is great guard play unless they can shoot the lights out of the gym, unless you have a guy like Steph Curry, in which there was still a lot of length on the outside for this team with Newton and Hawkins and Jackson and Caravan. And man, I love Joey Calcaterra. Like that's a fantastic name. He was just a lot of fun to watch. Joey California just stroking from the outside. It was they had everything working in the right way, and it was really fun team to watch. And I know for the nation, it wasn't a sexy thing, and it wasn't a close game or anything like that in the championship. And I saw, and I was going to bring this up, and I didn't know if you were going to bring it up or not, but I'm going to bring it up right now. I saw something today. I got a notification from ESPN that said this was the lowest viewed men's national championship game ever. And look, I understand it because, we're going to have this conversation. Is or is not Connecticut a blue blood? Should they be considered a blue blood? They're from Connecticut. It's not a sexy state. It's a small state in, the Northeast that not a lot of people really know or care much about. And then you had San Diego State, and we know how people treat their sports on the left coast. Sometimes they're in, they're out. Sometimes you don't really know. They're very fair weather fans, and the rest of the nation doesn't really care about a team in San Diego State. So I'm not blaming this on UConn because they are a big name, and it was good, I think, for college basketball. If you were a college basketball fan, to see UConn back in the finals and them being such a prominent program, which, again, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. They, to me, are a blue blood program. This was really all about San Diego State. Nobody gives a rip about San Diego State and watching them in the finals. And then the way that UConn was just rolling, folks, it didn't surprise me. And I made this comparison on the show earlier this week. And if you were a fan of a team, I don't give a damn about the nation watching or anything like that. All I cared about was UConn winning the basketball game. Mm-hmm. And for me, as if you're a fan of a team, this is exactly the way that you wanted them to win a championship. Didn't really want to stress all that much about it. You just kind of, it was a 4-point lead or deficit that they had to overcome. The Aztecs were hitting some tough shots. It was what it was. Danny Hurley talked about it. I wasn't worried. I wasn't scared. I knew they'd kind of get their rhythm and do what they needed to do. And then, they made a cute little run and got it to within 5 late in the game. But that game was really, to me, never, ever really in doubt that San Diego State was going to take it over. So for me, this was a perfect championship that it wasn't a lot of stress. It was a very comfortable win, and we won. So I was happy. I don't give a damn about the nation, and if they didn't watch it. Greg Larnerd was happy. That's really all that matters.
Well, let me ask you this, because you guys became that blue blood 1,000%. I mean, it does feel weird because, well, I'll ask this first. Because you guys have done it with 3 different coaches and you don't have your star coach, even with Carolina, you win it with 2, but Roy was already a name. So when you bring Roy over, it's still kind of partial to the stardom of a coach. Is it because of that? It's that it kind of didn't feel like you guys became a blue blood until the 5th championship, more than Kansas, So it's weird because that persona of having 1 coach or 2 coaches, you guys did it with 3 in 24 years. So do you think that's kind of the reason why? Star power a little bit?
I really, honestly, until you asked me that question, I hadn't really considered that, just because basically most of my life, all of my life, they've been a really good program. And, I don't know if you've ever seen the 30 for 30, the Requiem for the Big East. It's a fantastic documentary. If you haven't watched it, I'd love to go back and rewatch it, because it just shows the building blocks of the Big East and all of those big names and those star power coaches. Now that we look back on and say they were star power coaches, back then they were just young, fiery dudes. Like Jim Boeheim's got hair, and it's weird that, he's coaching his ass off there at Syracuse. And, you got John Thompson Sr., he's got the towel and he's coaching Georgetown, and Patrick Ewing's dominating and all this stuff. But, Connecticut was one of those schools that wasn't really all that big until the 90s hit. Jim Calhoun got there. He kind of gave you some star power, but it took him a while to build up that program. And they had to really be patient with Connecticut, because I'm going to be honest with you. I talked to my dad about this. I know you've never been to Storrs, Connecticut, but who the hell wants to go to Storrs, Connecticut? The fact that, and Danny Hurley said it at the podium at their celebration at Gamble Pavilion earlier the week, this is the college basketball capital of the world. And it's just it's mind boggling that the men and the women, they've been so freaking good. And the fact that Storrs, Connecticut can be in the conversation at the very least for the, basketball capital of the world. To go back to your question, Jim Calhoun, it just took him so long to sort of build that thing up. And by the time they won and were consistently winning, he was just getting real old and long in the tooth, and he had some health concerns. And honestly, if he was able to stay there and continue to build that, he would have won that championship instead of Kevin Ollie, but he had to step away. He had to step down.
Mhm.
Kevin Ollie's still obviously a big name who played in the NBA. He played for UConn. It was a really good story. This thing, if Kevin Ollie would have been able to stay there and continue to build it up, people would have considered this school and this team a blue blood a lot sooner because, like you've sort of mentioned, you go from the two coaches in North Carolina, was it Dean Smith and
Roy Williams?
Roy Williams, that's right. You could have went, it would have been a good story to go from Calhoun to Ollie. He was on his staff. He is played there. He was an NBA player. You win the championship. Then obviously the situation happened with him and the school, and it was just a bad ending. And then it just took such a long time to build that thing back up. And I love the fire and desire with Dan Hurley, and I love that they were able to have enough patience with him to say, look, he comes from a good basketball family. He is a good basketball coach. He's just got to have some time here to get the right guys in the building. And I was going into this tournament saying, much like everybody, that he's got to at least get out of the first weekend. If he doesn't get out of the first weekend, like this is 5 years, and it's been like 3 years in a row that he wouldn't have gotten out of the first weekend. It would have been early exits for UConn. He's had some talented players, but this was the first year that it really felt like they had a complete team, not just a couple of good players. So that's a long way to say, yeah, I think you're right that in assuming that since they probably have had so much turmoil and turnover in terms of coaches and, not a lot of consistency lately, that's probably led to the narrative that people are talking about that team. We're not sure if they really were blue blood or not. When in all reality, you look at a program when they win 4 championships in the span of 23 years. I mean, that's pretty damn, that's better than most.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy because go back to Craig's point. I mean, it just feels like even though it says they're not a blue blood, has been lying to themselves for over a decade. I mean, they've won 3 or more in the tournament. It kind of makes you a blue blood. And I just feel like UConn's done it in different ways because, it's been 4, they won it as a 3, and they were a 6, I think, with Shabazz. 7, they were a 7 with Shabazz.
That was a crazy year.
That was another weird one. I think LSU was in that one.
Yeah.
It was a wild one. That was Big Baby, right?
They beat Kentucky.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then, and then they beat Butler. They had a good run there. It's kind of wild to me to look back because I never really put that in my mind of like how many they won because they just they don't have the clout throughout the whole regular season. Like Carolina stunk this year and they still got nationally televised games over and over and over and over again because they draw a huge fandom like they just do in the South and especially in the entire East Coast too. I mean, they're just a huge brand, but Kentucky's the same way. It's just a huge brand. UCLA, huge brand. But I don't consider UCLA, like they're Indiana and UCLA are so far out of it to me sometimes. And I'm like, why are you guys in the conversation? But yeah. And also shout out to Craig. I just got back from his honeymoon. I'm sorry, I missed your wedding, buddy, but congratulations. Big jump. You and Aaron are the best. Yeah. And I want to go back. It's funny because Gavin does not think the same thing. He says the UConn is not a blue blood, in my opinion. They're like the LSU of football. They pop up every couple of years and win a natty, but no consistency between like of Duke or Kansas. Max respect to UConn, though. Huge Kemba and Shabazz. But I don't know. That's a lot of people's perception, too.
Yeah, I understand it. Like, I get it because that's a good comparison with LSU. I almost liken them to a certain degree. Again, I know this team didn't win as many championships. They only won 2, but I kind of liken them to the New York Giants in the NFL where like they won't really make the tournament every single year. They'll have some bad years, but then like once they make a run, they win the damn thing. They're 5-0 in championship games. Like what?
Yeah.
That's insane. Like Tennessee can't even get to a Final Four and UConn's 5-0 in championship games.
Yeah. We didn't get a chance to talk about it. That's
Sorry.
okay. Dude, that was Sweet 16 was my expectation. Again, it was very similar to football. I had expectations of getting to they exceeded my expectations. But once you got in the moment, you felt like they let you down. So, like if you're looking at it from a season total, you're like, this is great. But when you get there, you're like, we should have won. But I don't know.
I honestly think like when I want to just to talk about Tennessee for a moment, since we went there, I honestly believe that they can take what UConn did and they can make it their own. Like, you have to get the right pieces. And I understand that 7'2" smart freshmen don't grow on trees. Like, Urosh was 7'2", but he was an emotional, dumb player at times.
Yeah.
Like, that's the difference between Urosh and Klingon. And Klingon, not like a dude who's huge and athletic is going to jump out of the gym, but he's a guy who can affect shots. Urosh didn't really do that. Like, you have Adu who can do that, but you have to find like a dude like Sonogo, like a big guy that's maybe not like 7 foot, but a dude who's like 6'10", 6'9", instead of, Olivier Comwa, who's more of a stretch 4 than like real back to the basket, force down low. Like, you need to find somebody like that to come in there and just shore up the painted area. Who can score on the low block. And then you need to find some guys who can score more consistently. Like, that's my biggest thing with Tennessee. They're great defensively. They've got enough. I'm getting super animated right now.
Good.
They've got enough defensively. And generally that's a lot of the times that's the hardest part for teams, is to be good defensively, but they've got that. You just have to go out there as a recruiter and find some damn scoring. Yeah. Find some dudes who can consistently put the ball in the basket. Like, I sit here and I know I'm making it sound way easier than it is. It's hard. Like, Julian Phillips should have been that guy this year, but he just could not play for some reason. And the fact that folks are bantying him out there like, oh, he might go to the draft. Like, he's probably going to – there's no freaking way he's going to the draft.
No way. Not with
there is no team in their right mind that is going to be like, oh yeah, I see the potential with Julian. What potential? Like, yeah, he's long, he's lean, he's athletic, but you got to show me something at least on the college level before I take you a draft pick on you.
Yeah, it feels like those days of like just taking a guy based off 6'6", 6'7", long, athletic. Those days are over. You have to be too skilled now with with like European players. Just worldwide players now, like the evaluations are so much further out. I mean, guys like Victor Wembanyama exist out there. It's wild to me that there's no more taking a chance on people. You can't afford it in the NBA. You have to find talent now. And he is not somebody that's ready. And college is going to be a good thing for him, hopefully. He has the potential, but nobody's going to draft you on that anymore, really, unless you are 7 foot and can move. Like, Klingman is a good example. Like, he has really good footwork. He was able to, the biggest play of his career was probably a blocked that alley-oop that he had in the Final Four. It was, the guy gets back and reacts well. And those are the guys you can kind of take a chance on because you just need rim runners and good defensive, like, mobile big men in the league. But you can't do that with wings anymore. You need somebody who can score right now. That's a good point because
I love these comments, by the way. Like, I'm just I'm looking at these comments right now. Like, some of them are asking. I don't mean to jump into your what?
Which comments you looking at here?
Okay, so like I'm looking at like Steven Snyder that he says like doesn't this UConn national championship remind you of Kevin Ollie's championship? It doesn't at all, because you know why? Kevin Ollie basically had his championship ready made for him through Jim Calhoun's recruiting. He brought in those guys. He brought in a lot of those players, and those guys were within the program. Dan Hurley, he's been here for 5 years on his own. Like, Kevin Ollie was there for a minute, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, we're going to transition into Kevin Ollie now because Jim Calhoun is older. He's got some health issues. He can't physically do it anymore. So Kevin Ollie just sort of slid in there. Dan Hurley, he built this program up over 5 years, and this was the culmination of all his hard work. So if he doesn't repeat, like, I don't think he'll be gone. Like, they're going to give him a little leeway now since he won a championship, but you obviously have to show progress and you have to show succession and you have to show success. It's unrealistic to say, hey, we're going to win a national championship every year. Yeah. But you got to get to the dance. You got to get at least to the Sweet 16 and make some Elite 8 runs and a Final Four. Like, you have to make some of those runs, or else, you will be gone if you don't have some success. But it's unrealistic to think that you're going to go and win a championship. And then Gavin Jones, I thought this was an interesting comment. If you want to pull that one up there.
Let's start with there.
I would consider UConn a blue blood over Kentucky. Yeah, there we go.
Wow.
has won one natty. You can't be a blue blood with one natty. That's a great point by
That's
Gavin.
crazy to think about. Yeah.
That's a great point. But just like we all think of Kentucky, and it's a Calipari, it's a basketball school. It's not a football school, yada yada yada. But yeah, one national champ that, to your points, the one head for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is like, all right, there's a consistency program, but where UConn has just been like Calhoun to Ollie to Hurley, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of consistency there. That's why I like your point that if Calhoun was able to stay healthy, or even if Kevin Ollie was able to stick there and he was able to kind of make a run and continue on with his success there, then it would have been more considerate of a blue blood. But Coach Cal, the consistency on the sideline, it really, I think, to your point, does make a difference.
Yeah. And the Kentucky thing just
and I'm
carries
sorry that
over.
I keep looking up. There's like there's a stink bug flying around in here, and I
was actually wondering. I was like, is there like a wasp? Because you look almost alerted. You look almost too alert for it to be less than like a wasp or something in there. I was waiting for you to go in a brawl.
These dang stink bugs, dude. Like they find a way in.
They always do, man. We had a really bad battle with the wasp, like hanging out in our bedroom last week, and got out the sandal and went like, it went bed. I had to get on the bed and hit like upwards to kill that thing. And the velocity that you got to get to go up like that, dude, I was like, I can't miss, because you boys got a little allergic reactions. I can't do that, man. If I get stung by that bad boy, I'll swell up. So I can't have that. But yeah, stink bugs, not great. Summertime, welcome back. But another part of it, like Kentucky's just such an old brand that it's gonna carry over the blue blood factor. Yeah, Cal's Cal, and his personality, like it's the big dominant personality of him being the mafia boss that's gonna keep him in the news forever and always. In 20 years?
Yeah, you're right.
Gavin says if you're not one in 20 years, it's not a blue blood. Gavin, why throw that comment in? He says, to me, if you haven't won 2 natties in the last 20 years, you're not a blue blood. We don't consider Tennessee a football power because they haven't won since 98. There's no reason to throw that comment in there, Gavin. There's no reason. We didn't need that.
Absolutely zero. It's uncalled for. Yeah. I was applauding you for your last couple of comments. That one, fighting words.
Yeah, fighting words, man. That's okay.
Throw it up.
Throw it up. Let's transition over, because I do want to ask, because this was a huge year for the women's basketball, and buddy, they threw up some trash talk. They threw up some good ratings, and to be honest, my favorite thing about it, even though it wasn't perfect for me because I was driving back to the beautiful state of Tennessee, I loved the Friday Final Four and the Sunday 3:30 championship instead of the 9:20 p.m. championship like the men's. Women's rocked for a jump. Like the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark thing was awesome. Caitlin Clark being what she is going to be a big changer. With this being a lackluster Final Four, especially compared to last year's, more blue blood. Who do you think won in the basketball meritocracy this year, men's or women's basketball?
The women, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. They were the talk of the town. Like it was national championship day for the men, and all we can talk about was the women. Now, if you had big prominent programs, like even if UConn was there, because I consider them a prominent program and a big name, obviously with what the women have done with Gino, and I know you Vol fans don't love Gino, but it is what it is. And
respect the hustle.
And then yeah, if you had like UConn in like Kansas or UConn, Kentucky, UConn, UNC, UConn, Duke, like, yeah, I probably would have gotten a lot more buzz. But I really hated the fact that this game was on, the championship game was on at 3:30 in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time on a Sunday. I really hated that. I
hated it.
I absolutely hated it because I'm just, for a championship game, I'm not looking for a championship game at 3:30 on a Sunday. Give me it prime time. Give me it at least 6 o'clock.
Yeah, like, I think a 6:30 Sunday would be like the most ideal time for me.
Yeah. Yeah, do that. That's fine. Like I have a problem with the not. Well, I have a little bit of a problem with 9:20 start. That's way too late. But I understand why they do it at that time. They want to try to make sure everybody can watch it.
Mhm.
Well, why can't we do that with the women as well? Can the women get some respect on their name? Like, if this game is going off here at 3:30, that means it's going off at 12:30 on the left coast in the afternoon, middle of the afternoon. Who's going to watch that? Like, I had no idea it was on. I was doing a practice until 2. Sam went and got a massage. She gets back a little before 4. We're making food. We're doing whatever we're doing. And she's like, "Oh yeah, like I would love to, see like this championship game. Like when is it on?" I was like, "I don't know. Like I'll check." Like figuring it was just at like 6 or 7. And all of a sudden I look and it's halftime. And I'm like, "What the? Are you kidding me?" And in UConn or LSU's up by 17. And I was like, this sucks. I would have loved to watch this game from start to finish. Like we were out at Frazier on Friday night. Me, Miggy, Allie, and Sam. Like, and Mig and I, everybody when the bar was like glued into South Carolina and Caitlin Clark.
Mhm. Yeah, and you're beating a powerhouse in South Carolina at that point. You're getting Staley. You're getting all the good stuff. I mean, the fact that you had Friday night was special because it brought more people in because you have to isolate yourself when you are a lesser viewed sport. Like you have to do that. You have to be weird. Like that's why the XFL worked the first time around a little bit more ratings wise because it was during the pandy when nobody was watching anything. So you couldn't compete with March Madness. So now, like the women's isolating themselves, and also, dude, shout out to ESPN. They marketed that thing hard, and they did a good job with it. And getting Caitlin Clark versus South Carolina, and getting her a dub, and then Angel Reese being who she is, like she created herself as a villain. She's leaning into it, and it's a freaking blast to watch. And I know some people hated it, especially like Lady Vol fans. And I love Pat Summitt. That is the most kind, wonderful woman I've ever met in my entire life. And she wouldn't have done that. She wouldn't have allowed that. But that's not who we are right now. That's not where the world is. And that's not what is kind of needed for the game for women's basketball right now. They need a little spark, and they kind of got it. It was a huge thing. Like you mentioned, I bet you talked about it all day Monday.
Yeah, we talked about it for our first segment. Like I led the day with that story because it was so big and so polarizing. I just was like, it has nothing to do with anything here in Tennessee or even close to this area, but it was such a big talking point from over the weekend. Like I had to talk about it, and I'm so glad that I didn't assume the game was on at 6 and pulled up the second half, and they made it respectable. They made it a little bit of a game there, and we got a little interesting and whatnot. And I have no problem with what Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese did. Like people are trying to say that those two things were the same thing, though. They clearly, like Angel Reese was literally following her around and getting in her face. And again, I have no problem with that, her doing that, because she's a competitor. She's in the moment. She like Caitlin Clark something to respect her team and her her sister, and the girls in North Carolina felt like she disrespected them, and the fact that she wanted to go out there and want to kind of upstage a little bit, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with them. Like you said, like women's basketball, as Gavin said, like let's be honest, like if you want to pull that comment, I thought that was that was a good one by Gavin. Most people don't watch women's basketball unless there's a star like Caitlin Clark. He's right. Like that was what got me involved and wanted to watch, because Caitlin Clark was doing what she was doing, throwing up 40-point triple doubles on everybody and just shooting from all over the gym like Steph Curry. Like remember back in the day when Davidson and Steph Curry made that run, how polarizing it was?
Yeah.
That's the same thing with Caitlin Clark. And the fact that LSU was a better team and Angel Reese is a damn good player herself, and she is a bad woman in a good way. Like she is so freaking good at the game of basketball. She's physical. She's got a great swagger and attitude to her. Like they both do. And I have no problem with her following her around and saying, hey, let's get that ring, because she felt like Caitlin Clark was disrespecting other people on her way there. So she's like, all right, I'm going to throw it back in her face. And Caitlin even said, even if she was just taking the high road, even if she was saying, oh, I didn't see it, there's no way she didn't see it. But she took the high road and she said, "Hey, I have no problem with what Angel Reese did." And I'm glad that she did, because it probably would have played into the narrative chase a little bit better if she was like, "Yeah, that was disrespectful. She shouldn't have done that." Like, oh my God, Twitter and everybody would have had a field day. But I love the fact that she's like, "No, I'm a competitor. Like, I'm cool with it. Like, we should have played better. We should have won. I have no problem with her doing what she did."
Yeah. And that was the favorite part about the whole weekend, was seeing Caitlin take the high road and also kind of giving her credit for it. It's like, I think Caitlin has a really good understanding of what she does during these games too. I
Great
think
point.
she is a very different person on and off the court. And she's probably like, I'm a little bit of an asshole while I'm on the court. And I think we all are. That's the really funny part. Like, shout out to one of my best friends in the entire world, offensive line coach for UTC, Kevin Revis. Like, he is the sweetest, kindest man in the world. But everybody I've ever talked to is like, he's a little bit of an asshole when he plays football. It's good. It's good to have that. I think it's fun.
Yeah, if you're a competitor and you're playing at that high a level, you got to have some sort of an edge to you. Like, Sam and I were talking about it, and like talking about like, man, like Kim Mulkey, she's tiny. Like, did she play? Like, how far did she play like into college basketball? And like, I didn't know, but I knew like she played somewhere in Louisiana, because I heard like, hey, she's coming home. And I went back and I watched some clips, and like she competed, win a national championship with Louisiana Tech, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. Like, and I don't know. I didn't go back and look at it, but I saw some highlights of like her facing some incredible USC teams with Cheryl Miller on it. And she was bawling, like, and she had that scowl, that FU attitude, like when she played, because she always was the smallest, probably underappreciated, probably taken for granted. And she sort of instills that in her girls of like, hey, you got to play with a chip on your shoulder if you want to be successful within this game. And again, I have no problem with that, because it clearly works. That is a great motivating factor to play with it on your shoulder. That's why I love Aaron Freak Rodgers so much, because in the beginning of his career, he played with, until he won a championship, he played with a chip on his shoulder, that he was the 24th overall draft pick. Nobody wanted him coming out of high school. He had to go to Butte Community College. Somehow I find a way to turn it into a Packers thing and an Aaron Rodgers thing. And if you're looking up here, like, you'll see my man.
We made it 37 minutes without you mentioning Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you. That's probably a world record for us in a conversation. So,
well, you know why it was because we were talking about one of my other teams. Like, if we weren't talking, if we were just talking like Tennessee or something like that, like, yeah, I probably would have figured out a way to work it in sooner. But
yeah, it is like one of your most impressive skills. Somehow I'm like, how we were talking about, chefs, and somehow you get back to Aaron Rodgers. It's impressive. I mean,
cooking up a defense,
Yeah, cooking up a defense. Yeah, you're going to throw something in there like, I'll say saute, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, he sauteed them up, last year. It loves the Vikings, something along those lines. And I did want to mention too, funny enough, it's crazy back on the UConn part. My favorite stat was they were 17-0 outside of conference play. And I was just thinking about little things today on the car ride home of how crazy it is, like in your conference, like little knickknacks, even like your worst teams pick up. Like the Titans feel like they always lose to Texans or the Jags, even when they're bad. And you're like, why? What are these small tendencies other teams can't watch from film that the teams that play you know how to do it? And it's just like, hey, man, conference play is just a different monster in the tournament. So that's the only thing I wanted to say about that, because that was just cool. They went 17-0 outside of conference. So brutal team. Back to the point of, though, Aaron Rodgers. He's going to the Jets. We'll talk about that real quick. How do you feel like as a fan? I wanted to ask you, I've got to talk to you about it. It's like, just are you more of a fan of Aaron Rodgers, or are you more of a Green Bay Packers guy since you've had him for most of your?
Yeah, I'm more of a Green Bay Packers guy. I'm going to be honest. Like, I have an undying love and appreciation for what Aaron Rodgers does and how he plays the quarterback position, and frankly, how he handles himself off the football field. I think he's a phenomenal person. I know a lot of people think he's just weird and this crazy dude likes to go and sit in a dark room and, what he does and goes on these different throwing up and diarrheaing all over the place and like just cleansing himself. But like, honestly, like we live in a society nowadays where things are so mucked up, and who knows what people are putting in certain foods and doing different things. And the way that a lot of us live is very unhealthy in terms of like our lifestyles, and social media can make things very mentally stressful. And the fact that he can find peace within himself doing the things that he does, and he moves differently than other people, I think that's a great thing. I think more people need to move a little bit differently. And I'm glad that we have the space where mental health and going to see a therapist or talking to a therapist is more normalized. And I know he's done that. And I frankly have done that. I'm not perfect, and I needed somebody to talk to. And I think everybody could benefit from having somebody to talk to, or just day to day in a different way. So I'm more of a green. Of course, I will always have love and appreciation for what Aaron Rodgers did, unless the Vikings, the Lions, like Favre, he was a big reason why I became a Packer fan, and I love him as well. He just felt slighted, and he wanted to kind of get back at the Packers. And I hope to goodness that Aaron Rodgers doesn't do that, because again, I will lose respect for him if he does do that. But you know, I appreciate his willingness to really want to be here and really want to be with this team. And but just to answer your question, I'm more of a Packers fan first and foremost, but obviously Aaron's my guy.
Yeah. And that's why I was wondering, because we're in such an age now, like you're so tied to teams, but you're more tied to players on those teams. It feels like more nowadays. Like it's such you get so much more access to them. It's like from our parents' age. I don't even feel like, even like if you're a Cowboys fan in the 90s, like you just didn't know jack shit about Troy. You didn't know anything about Emmett, really. You knew enough. Like Irvin was such a big personality, you kind of got an idea who he was, but you didn't know these guys outside of Jerry. And now you're getting to the point where, Aaron's access is crazy. Like Aubrey's got a huge podcast. Aubrey Marcus has got a huge podcast that he's friends with Aaron. Now Rogan's friends with Aaron. And it's just all these combinations of things. And what is wild to me is like following the world that Aaron is in now. Like I've been following those guys for a long time, and there are things that are a little like wonky to me. Like I don't love all this stuff. Like I don't see how, but there's so many things in fitness and health and mental space that don't attract me. Like the darkness world doesn't attract me, but everything that they're doing and on it, and all these places that are involved in that, like I take the nootropics. I think those are wonderful. There's so many like great things that come out of those spaces that you see. The big kind of weirder stuff like the ayahuasca trips. That's not for me, but I have a lot of friends that have done it and have come out in great headspaces. Like it'll change your life. $1 million companies, multi-million-dollar companies have come off people going down there to do ayahuasca. Is it something for me? No. But do I take the supplements that came out of that trip from ayahuasca? I sure do. Like bulletproof coffee, all that stuff came out of some weird headspaces. Like that's the thing, is like you have to take away these kind of oddities and look at what you get out of it in some ways. A big one for me was the Chris Hemsworth documentary series, like of him doing the Peter Attia. Excuse me. We're so close to getting over this cold. Like think about how weird it would be in 2004 if you're like, I'm going to go jump in an ice bucket every morning, or I'm going to be doing sauna 5 times a week, or I'm going to eat no carbs, or I'm going to eat all carbs. People would be like, this dude is batshit crazy. What is he doing going into an ice barrel every morning or jumping in the freezing cold water?
Yeah.
And now these are health protocols that people want you to do. So it's all going to come into fruition. And Aaron has done a really good job of being in the right group. Sometimes it's going to come off a little weird. Some of it I don't love. Like, I don't know if the darkness treat would be something for me or for most. I don't know if ayahuasca is for most, but it helps a lot. So, good for him, because he's put a lot of eyeballs in some really good places when it comes to attracting fans to different kinds of health and mental health space. And it's like, man, it's been really good for a lot of people, because like you, I've also had therapy help me. And it's just, it's been a really good experience to see this world kind of change a little bit at a time, even from athletes, because they're the most influential still.
Yeah.
That's who our superheroes are.
Yeah. Come on, Chuck. You are a role model.
Let's go. Last thing before we get let's
Well,
serious
if
here.
you before we go to that, I would like to address Gavin's comments that he made about Aaron and having somebody hold him accountable. Um, I get what he's saying. It is really, and you and I can probably attest to this, having girlfriends that I know Sam holds me accountable for a lot of different things and has pushed me and has, helped me get over some things and, stay on track with my career and whatnot. And it is very parents, people in my life holding me accountable there about not having to be accountable. I would like to think that he has surrounded himself not with people that are going to be yes men or yes women, and there are going to be people that will be honest with him. And I listened to the Aubrey Marcus podcast, and I think he probably has put people around him that, will tell him like it is and won't just sugarcoat things a lot of the times. It could be easy because he's Aaron Rodgers to just sugarcoat stuff and be like, yeah, dude, you're the greatest. Oh my gosh. But and again, I don't know this for sure because I'm not in that inner circle or anywhere in the same stratosphere as that. But I would hope that he is surrounding himself with people that can hold him accountable. It's just, again, he's not a dude that moves normally. So it's probably different people than you or I have that hold him accountable. So I don't know if I agree with he doesn't have anybody that holds him accountable. I'm sure there's people within his life that hold him accountable.
Yeah. And I think in those spaces, and I don't feel like he'd be doing the things he'd be doing, honestly, if he had a bunch of yes men. Because those type of people, if you had a bunch of yes men, they would probably be steering you away from that sort of Austin lifestyle that they have. I don't think they would be allowing you, but could be wrong. But I'm with you. It doesn't seem like he has that. He does seem like he kind of rolls his own way forever and always. Doesn't seem like that's going to change, and he's going to leave teams on the hook for probably the next 3 or 4 years. So that's who he's going to be.
Well, but I mean, like that's what. See, I don't understand why that is such a big deal. Like of him, like not being 100% sure what he wants to do. He's getting older. Like I think it would be worse for him to say, "Hey, look." To the Jets, I'm going to play 3 years. I'm committed to you guys for 3 years. Like, what if he goes and plays this first season? He's like, man, like my body, like going from 38 to 39 or 39 to 40, whatever it is, like that took a toll on me. Like, I don't know if I can do this again. Like, I think it's okay for him. I don't understand why people get set to say, oh, such a dick up. Will he, won't he, whether he's going to back like major decision that he has to make. Like, and I just don't understand the backlash that people give him for being, for just taking some time to make that decision, feel through the options and say, what do I do with my friend? This is my life. I only get one shot at this. I want to try to make the best decision for me that I can possibly make. And I think it would be unfair of him to say, I'm going to commit to X team for X amount of years and then just be like, I don't know if I'm feeling it. Like that to me would be worse. I think he's being upfront. He's being honest with everybody and saying, I need to go through a process to see if I really can truly come back and play at this advanced age. Again, it's just all these media pundits just want something to talk about and want something that the Aaron Rodgers haters, aka the chief number one hater, Chris Carlin, wants to just go out there and talk trash about him every step of the way. Oh, this diva, this, that, make up your mind. You're such a waffler. You're like Brett Favre. It really grinds my gears, man.
I think the biggest thing for them, especially for the Jets, the market that they're going to be asking for, because the Packers know what they can get. I mean, it's just a wild trade market. You're like, I have to labor my future on this guy that I'm not sure, that's going to be unsure every offseason, that's going to cause me a headache. And yeah, it shouldn't be a problem, the fact that he goes on McAfee, but it is because of the media pundits that you just mentioned. It causes a team headache because of that. They don't want those headaches. I guess that's the thing, is you're laboring so much on your future because you're going to have to give away draft picks. You're going to have to, I don't know if they'll want a quarterback. I don't know how that's going to work. Do you know what they're asking for, really? I mean, have you heard any more? No, it's all hearsay. But
I think the Packers ideally would want like a first round draft pick, like they're what is it, pick number 13 or whatever they're at right now. Like, and I think the Jets willing or wanting to give that up, or not a first round draft pick at all, because I get what you're saying. Like, I understand, like, we're not sure, and it's hard for us to just say, hey, we're going to give up a first or two, or a first and a third, or a first and a second, or 2 seconds, or whatever it may be, to sort of mortgage our future to get this guy just for 1 year. We don't know exactly how long he's going to stay. Like, but that's again the risk you run at signing and trading for a quarterback. That's old. You never know when the expiration date is going to come due. Like, you don't know, because either they don't really, their body just can't take it anymore, or maybe they just don't have it anymore talent wise, which I don't think is the case with Aaron Rodgers. He does have it. He has lost a little bit of a step in terms of his mobility and things like that, but that happens when you get older. We've all felt it. I know you feel it. You're not the same in CSL as you were back in your star co-captain Ray County days, but like,
no. Still winning championships, but just,
Yeah.
more of a role player, a good locker room leadership guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get your point about that with Aaron Rodgers. I haven't really heard any more about it. I think everybody at this point is just sort of crossing fingers and being like, I hope this gets done the draft, because it would be great for both sides to know what kind of draft capital they have and really develop a strategy around that. But if I'm the Packers, I don't blame them for not being just like, we're just gonna give up Aaron Rodgers for a third pick, and that's gonna be that. Like,
yeah,
this is a dude that was a 2-time MVP, and I'm going to be honest with you, he would have played much better. Everybody talks about how bad he was here, talk about how bad he was that last year, Mike McCarthy, and then how bad he was, or mediocre. I'm not saying bad, mediocre he was that first year of Matt LaFleur. Like, again, I know I am the biggest Aaron Rodgers apologist that there is, but there are legitimate reasons for those things happening. Again, not wanting Mike McCarthy there anymore. He's just kind of spinning his wheels, realizing he can't win with Mike McCarthy. 2, with Matt LaFleur coming in, it's a whole new offense. Do I really trust this guy? We're trying to feel each other out. There was that. And then last year he broke his thumb, and he played the entire year with a broken thumb. So, like, again, people talking about how he's always kind of on the decline. I'm not sure if he still has it. He'll play this year for the Jets, and he'll show with a good offense and with some good young weapons that he'll still be able to make throws that Jet fans haven't witnessed in their entire existence.
That's a damn fact. They're going to get so much more than they ever even imagine. Like, the city of New York City is going to be so happy. They just don't even know it yet. Like, it's going to be frustrating until the actual trade goes through. But when it happens and you see it on the field with what could be a really good wide receiving core, I don't know, man. It'll be a good offense, and that defense is going to come back strong if they can keep as many people as possible and do a good job in the draft. But let's do this. We're running a little short on time. How about we do give me your top 3 things the casual fan has to look forward to in this offseason after March Madness and the Masters, the most casual sporting events in the country.
Well, I would say the draft for sure. Everybody's a football fan. Everybody cares about football, it seems like. So the draft is where it's like the perfect melding of like the fans from college football and the fans from the NFL. They all kind of like come together and is like, oh my God, our worlds are colliding. Here we go. The draft or the combine is sort of a taste for that. And then the draft is like, all right, college football and the NFL, we're going to meet, we're going to mesh together. And it's just a fun mashup between those two things. So definitely the draft at the end of April is big for me. Like, I'm a huge baseball guy, so I'm looking forward to really digging into Tennessee baseball here in the state of Tennessee and in Chattanooga. And then obviously with Major League Baseball, the Braves, the Mets, the NL East, the whole thing, that's going to be fun to me.
Hey, real quick, give me your 2 or 3 like major headlines for baseball for like the casual watcher. Like, cause we're starting to pick back up here, and I have really been trying to tune into my Braves baseball via ESPN 95.3 radio. That give me some headlines like that keep you intrigued for the MLB season right now.
Well, I think the first one, is got to be Shohei Ohtani and what he can do to follow up his MVP, year that he had last year. And it was the sort of a taste of what he was able to do in the World Baseball Classic, of how freaking good this guy can be. And will the Angels actually make it to the playoffs? Because again, it's just mind-boggling to me. You have had the best player in the sport, and now you probably have two of the best players in the sport, and you can't find a way to make the playoffs and get enough pitching to make the playoffs. So that's something fun for a casual fan to watch. Now, I understand that the Angels are on the West Coast, and a lot of their games start very late, and it's not really conducive to watch a lot, especially us on the East Coast. So that would be a big thing. It's also going to be fun to watch and see how the NL East plays out, because the Nationals clearly stink. The Marlins aren't going to be too much of a factor. They'll finish fourth, but I'm really intrigued to see how the top three pan out again between the Mets, the Braves, and the Phillies. And I hope it goes in that order in terms of who finishes where. But I'm really nervous
I don't know if
about
you saw,
the Mets.
Mr. Craig Story, our fellow Braves fan himself. Our group text was firing off about the City Edition. Our boys spent a lot of money on some City Edition gear this year, so yeah. Craig
Well,
Story
look,
asked, how will the
they'll
Mex
find a
jump
way
in
to
this year?
joke. I'm sure they'll find some way to joke. I mean, they'll find a fun and creative way to do it. It is what it is. It happens every year. The only thing that I was going to say is I'm very skeptical about how the pitching rotation is going to pan out, because they are, I mean, most of those guys have an AARP card at this point. They're very old. And Verlander's already on the IL. Sure.
Yeah.
Scherzer's giving up back-to-back jacks. Like, he's not the same dude. Carlos Carrasco just doesn't have the same velo as he used to have. Like, that makes me very nervous. So I like this team, but again, it's hard to pick against the Braves. The Mets always find a way to screw it up. The Braves are just the model of consistency. They've been a model of consistency since we were children. Like, that's why I hate them so much, because they were always so freaking good and so consistent. Like, they always won. And, it's just like people growing up in the early 2000s and seeing Tom Brady and the Patriots win over and over and over and over again. Like, kids nowadays, they're like, oh, why did you hate the Patriots? Like, what's wrong with it? They stink. Mac Jones is no good. Belichick's old. Like, they didn't realize the Tom Brady era is like most of the mid 20-year-olds who didn't experience the Cowboys run in the 90s, and why people hated them so much or hate them so much. Like, obviously it's easy to hate the Cowboys, but those are just a couple of things to kind of keep your eye on. I'm going to be honest, I haven't really dove his head first into baseball in general. I would like to. I've just, while basketball's sort of been going on, I'm like, all right, I'm going to kind of keep tabs on the NL East, because I got to cover the Braves and I love the Mets. So, that's really what I've been focused on. But those are just a couple of things that I would kind of keep my eye on moving forward.
Yeah, that's what I want to figure out. I wanted to see what your thoughts were, because I mean, you are. And I know it's your time to turn into that Major League Baseball fan. You are going to be an MLB guy through and through, and that's one thing that's different about you and I love that. But one thing we do agree on is the NBA. And I'll say, away from, because the number one thing that I had on my top three things that what we have to look forward to as casual fans is the people that become NFL draft experts, like in a matter of a couple of weeks. Like, March Madness ends and the Masters end. Well, first they become like partial Masters people. Like, I'll probably tweet about it, and I've watched 2 golf tournaments all year. And I'm going to talk about it like I know what I'm doing. That's just what we do, man. That's why we love this game. But the NFL draft experts are my favorite. Like, guys are like, dude, Anthony Richardson is Cam Newton 2.0. It's like, did you watch Cam Newton in college football? Like, did you watch Cam Newton? He was unbelievable. He freaking Michael Jordan, that team. And now we're starting to compare him like to this wild man. I don't know. So that's my favorite part, is we're going to become, and yeah, I'm partially, I'm subtweeting through our air. Trey Wynn, my co-host, he's a big AR-15 guy. So we'll see. We'll see, because I love the NFL draft experts that we get from Masters Week to draft. It's my favorite part, because we're going to all just evaluate players, because we got nothing else to do. We got nothing else besides like playing games in the NBA, and we'll see how that goes. I'm interested to find out, like, I think for me, when you look at a casual thing, you're like, oh, wow, the Suns got Kevin Durant again. I forgot about that. And then they're going to dominate this playoffs because you're going to see just star-studded talent play out. And then you'll get to have a Chris Paul narrative come about again. I don't know if do we count this one for Chris Paul if he gets it? Or is it kind of like an asterisk? Point fraud. Dude, I know Sam D is not going to be happy about that if he gets a ship because it's going to be a huge asterisk for him.
I don't trust that team. Like, I understand KD is KD and Chris Paul to me is just like, everybody wants to vault him up as this incredible leader. And I love D-Book. Like, I think he is a phenomenal young talent and he is him and he can put it in the basket as good as anybody. But I don't know. I just don't have a lot of faith in the Suns team. A Chris Paul led Suns team, I just don't think is going to win a championship. I can't do it. I can't say it. Even though KD is fantastic, I can't do it.
It's tough. It is because I really like the net. I like Nuggets. Sorry, not Nets. I really love the Nuggets, but can't trust them because there's just little things. You're like, well, Murray's going to have to turn it around. He's not played great. Yeah, when you put KD and Book together, you're like, man, that's the best 1-2 combo in the league. But then you look at the whole East and you're like, well, there's some good teams out there, man. Like Giannis could do it again. It's going to be a pretty good NBA playoffs. I don't know if this is going to be the best one we're ever going to have, but this is going to be a really good NBA playoffs. And in this area, and I know for some channel folks, Ja really needs to have a good playoffs. I think the guy needs to bounce back and like show the play. I think that's my number one NBA storyline is if Ja can turn it around on the court. You might get some healthy outlook on you again because right now it's pretty tough.
Yeah. It is pretty tough for Ja Morant. I'm obviously, as a Knicks fan, very excited about the Knicks grabbing a 5-seed. Obviously, not having Julius to start the season potentially is tough, but that's going to be a fun matchup with the Cavs, and I think it's going to be Donovan Mitchell's just going to cook us at MSG. Like, I know it. Like, it's just this whole day. It's going to be exactly what Trey did to the Knicks back a couple of years ago when I first moved here.
Oh, you think so? You a little worried about that?
Oh, I'm super worried about it. Everybody's like, oh, this is exactly who the Knicks want. No, you did not want a guy who felt like you weren't willing to give up what you needed to give up to get him. And I understand he loves the Mets and his dad played for the Mets and he's a big New York guy and he wanted to be here. We talked about motivation earlier on in the show and playing with a chip on your shoulder. Donovan Mitchell is going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder, just like Trey was as they were talking all that smack and trying to push him around and bully him. And he just went off. And Donovan Mitchell is going to go off on the Knicks. The Knicks are not going to win this series. The Cavs are a better team than the Knicks.
Yeah. I hate to say that because I think I've kind of become partial because of you a little bit. I've always liked Julius. Julius is somebody that, as a slower point forward kind of guy throughout his basketball life in the pickup realm. Julius is somebody I like. I get some feels for because I'm like, man, you're out here working hard because you're not really an above the rim guy. You got to work hard. Like you got to have a wide open space to throw it out of jam. You got to work a little harder because we're not blowing by people. But he's worked on his body. He bounced back. He was another person that I do like Brunson. Thought he was one of the best pickups that they could have got. For the value, because I was like, oh, I thought it was a little high at first. And then he just proved like he was worth it, man. He was really worth it. And when you're worth it after getting all the criticism, like that's a really high number for Jalen Brunson. Those stories are the best. It's like when you hit expectation, probably, maybe a little bit above, then those are the best stories to me. And Jalen's, God, he's a good player, man. I do worry about Donovan Mitchell for you, buddy. I do. I didn't think about the whole Knicks aspect of it. Yeah, it's gonna be rough. The most mid team of all time, the Atlanta Hawks. So we'll figure that out when it gets here. Anything else you need to touch on? Anything you want to pump out to the crowd that you got going on?
I mean, just if you're in the Chattanooga area and you're listening to ChattTenn Sports, which obviously I would assume you are. I'm sure you have some listeners and some people who pay attention to this thing outside of the Chattanooga area. Get the ESPN Chattanooga app, and if you enjoyed any of what I said or just think I'm a complete buffoon, please continue to listen and argue with me. I would love to have conversation and debate. You'll hear and see this man to my this way. What is that, left? On Fridays, every Friday on our Feel Good Friday show. So like, just come and hang out. Like it is a difficult job. Just to give you a little behind the scenes, and I went to a broadcasting summit out there in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, and you had these big shows and these guys on that host big shows in LA and whatnot going out there talking, and you have Jim Rome, and you have Colin Cowherd out there talking, and like these guys have just so many people working with them, and have a co-host and have producers and people that help write this the show and tailor the show. And just being a one-man band myself, like I can't tell you how appreciative I am to have you and Miggy and Garrett and everybody that jumps on in the Feel Good Friday hour of the show, and just everybody who checks in and interacts with me on Twitter and calls in. Like, I know we haven't had a lot of callers. I would love to have more people call in and talk some sports, because it is a difficult thing to be a one-man band and sit in that studio and talk to yourself for sometimes 2 hours. I try to have guests and whatnot, but just come and hang out. Like it's a good time. We try to have some sports conversation. I'd love to go off the rails a little bit. Like, that's why I like to do it with you guys on Fridays. And that's why I love Chat It Up, our old podcast that we had, was because we could go off the rails. And that was our time to be able to take left turns and do different things and have cool conversations. And it was just sort of an open forum. And I really want to get back to doing Ask G Thursday so we can take those left turns. So I want people to get involved, and I want people to listen and interact, and I just want to have some fun with the people of Chattanooga. Like, that's my biggest thing. And I do really appreciate you having me on this platform to talk my talk and do our thing. And where can I find you, Greg? What times do you go live? I'm live noon to 2, Monday through Friday on ESPN 95.3, ESPNChattanooga.com, the ESPN Chattanooga mobile app. Like, again, come and hang out. It's better when we have multiple people interacting, and I can play off some people, because a lot of the times it's me sitting there talking to myself and talking into a microphone and talking to the mystical, magical world of radio. So come and hang out noon to 2. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. It's nice and simple. It's at Greg Larnerd. So Chase, I love hanging out with you, man. It's been too long. I can't wait to see you in person again on Friday. And I love that you asked me to come and do this. I'm so happy that I can make it work. And you give me time every single Friday, so it's the least I can do to make some time and come hang out with you and your listeners, and just add whatever buffoonery I can add to the show, whenever you ask. So whenever you need me, man, I'm in.
I appreciate it, dog, man. Much love. I'm telling you guys, it's one of my best friends in the entire world. Yes. Listen to some Fridays. Feel Good Fridays is one of my favorite times of the week. Just like go hang out with my buddies. Like, this is kind of what it was today. We hadn't even talked, and we'll text here about random stuff. And I don't know. We'll just say shout out to our boy GT today. I don't know what they want to do.
Yeah.
So
shout out.
It's like this small, like little text here and there, but this is one of my favorite things about this whole platform. It's just us doing our sports talk that we would do every day anyways. So gives you an extra hour every week. So, buddy, I appreciate you. Greg Larnerd again. To all the people typing in comments, listen to my mouth breathing today. We're so close to getting over this cold. Lee Lovians, like, subscribe to ChattTenn Sports, rate, review, all the good stuff. Follow Greg again at Greg Larnerd pretty much everywhere. It's super simple. It's great. It's so great. Follow me at MCGreen423. Give a lot of love to our boy Trey Wynn. Very busy week. He's a dad of 3. He's a musician. So go give his songs a listen. He's going to be playing some more spots. He's got 3 kids, dog.
Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
He's a busy man.
Holy
He's
crap.
not our friend Malcolm Harris, who will be on the show later on this summer. That kind of busy, but he's like busy, you know?
Yeah.
So
he's real world busy. Like
Real
kids
world
are no joke.
yeah. So to all you dads out there, we appreciate you. I'm going to go be Uncle Chase tomorrow. That's why I couldn't make kickball, buddy. So I love you, man, and I'll see you Friday.
We would lose with you. We'd lose without you. It would just be better to see you and lose.
Yeah, we have a little more fun losing, crack up
Yeah.
the cold ones and figure it out. But yeah. All
Hopefully
right, buddy.
not slide, never sliding ever again.
Yeah,
Never
battle wounds,
again.
bro. Battle
Never
wounds.
again. Never again.
Don't go hard in kickball, friends. All right,
No.
we're out of here. Again, do all the fun stuff we need you to do. Subscribe, follow, share.